Hi guys, I am back again with an interesting story of the events of the Cuban Missile Crisis that occurred in October 1962. This was an important event in the history of the world, and at the time the chances of a nuclear war between the United States and Russia were as close as two fingers. Remember to like the video and subscribe if you find this video informative and interesting. Without further waste of time, let's start. The Cuban Missile Crisis was a pivotal event in the Cold War, a tense standoff between the United States and the Soviet Union that brought the world to the brink of nuclear war. Lasting for 13 days in October 1962, it was one of the most dangerous moments in modern history. This article will provide an overview of the crisis, its causes, the key players involved, and its ultimate resolution. The roots of the Cuban Missile Crisis can be traced back to the Bay of Pigs invasion in April 1961. The CIA-backed operation, aimed at overthrowing Fidel Castro's communist regime in Cuba, ended in a humiliating defeat for the United States. This incident intensified tensions between the two superpowers, with the Soviet Union eager to protect its ally, Cuba. In response to the failed invasion, Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev decided to deploy nuclear missiles to Cuba. The missiles would provide a strategic advantage for the Soviet Union, as they could target major U.S. cities within minutes, effectively leveling the playing field in terms of nuclear capability. This move alarmed U.S. President John F. Kennedy, who saw it as a direct threat to national security. On October 14, 1962, U.S. reconnaissance aircraft captured photographic evidence of Soviet missile installations in Cuba. Kennedy convened his advisors, and after a series of intense discussions and deliberations, they settled on a course of action. The United States would initiate a naval blockade, or a quarantine, around Cuba to prevent further Soviet shipments of weapons and military supplies. As tensions escalated, the world watched anxiously. The U.S. military was on high alert, and fears of a nuclear exchange grew. Kennedy delivered a televised address to the nation on October 22, 1962, revealing the presence of Soviet missiles in Cuba and announcing the blockade. He made it clear that any attack from Cuba would be seen as an act of war by the Soviet Union. The crisis reached its most critical point on October 27, when a U.S. reconnaissance aircraft was shot down over Cuba, escalating tensions further. Kennedy and his advisors considered various options, including a military strike on the missile sites. However, they ultimately chose a diplomatic path, opening a secret channel of communication with Khrushchev. Through a series of tense negotiations, Kennedy and Khrushchev found a way to defuse the crisis. The United States agreed to publicly pledge not to invade Cuba, while the Soviet Union agreed to dismantle its missile installations in Cuba. In addition, the United States privately agreed to remove its missiles from Turkey. These secret concessions allowed both leaders to save face and prevent a catastrophic conflict. The resolution of the Cuban Missile Crisis had far-reaching consequences. It marked a turning point in the Cold War, as both sides realized the dangerous nature of their rivalry. The crisis also led to the establishment of a direct hotline between the White House and the Kremlin to facilitate communication and prevent similar misunderstandings in the future. In conclusion, the Cuban Missile Crisis was a harrowing episode that brought the world closer to nuclear war than ever before. Through a combination of diplomacy, strategic maneuvering, and back-channel negotiations, Kennedy and Khrushchev managed to defuse the crisis and avoid a catastrophic conflict. The lessons learned from this near disaster continue to shape international relations and serve as a reminder of the importance of dialogue and diplomacy in times of crisis.